Good evening, everyone. My name is Mandi and I am a reporter in Cape Town. This is On the Couch with Mandi. Today we have Alderman JP Smith, the MMC for Safety and Security in Cape Town. Alderman, welcome. Finally, I have you on the couch. How are you today?
I'm well, ma'am. I am a pluviophile, so I love the rain. But unfortunately, the rain causes a lot of misery for many people in our city and for our infrastructure. So I'm always conflicted on these days. Part of me goes, "Yay, it's raining." Other part of me goes, "Well, this also means a lot of challenges." But yes, I'm good, and I'm getting to finally do this interview with you, Uxolo, for making this take so long. But our timing was just constantly off. And I did want to say to you, we could perhaps do this more frequently with you if you will permit. And then we can bring subject matter experts on specific stuff from the city or within safety and security, particular topics that the public may be interested in, whether it is around vehicle licensing or specific kinds of problems or issues that they're dealing with, to if that's helpful to help people deal with these or navigate these better.
That would be awesome. I'm sure the audience would really love to hear more about those things and to just educate even me, and maybe you can bring someone that can bring my tickets, or just my scrap of my tickets. That one would be nice.
I think that's on the naughty list. But there is a mechanism that is available to every member of the public. You do not have to have some kind of secret connection. Any member of the public can write to the public prosecutor, to the court section in the city. They will divert it to the correct prosecutor in the correct magisterial district, and you can make representation based on indigency or some other motivation around the circumstance as to why the fine should be reduced or withdrawn. And it is your legal right to do so. Or you can go to court and make the representation there, which I think few people have an enthusiasm for. So that is always a tool. And, journalists are always complaining about what they're paid. So I think you can probably make a good argument for not earning enough and needing a discount on those fines.
Okay, fine. We're going back to devolution of powers. Thank you, JP, for that.
Maybe it was just you that complained and not all the other journalists.
It is just me. Okay, JP, staying on topic, I just want to know, we've been hearing about the devolution of policing powers to the city, but what does it mean?
So it essentially means one of two things. One, in the grand scheme of things, it means taking the control of your police force from national government to provincial or local government. The Constitution allows for that. The national minister can actually himself authorize this. So Mkhunu, just like Cele before him, has the power to devolve the control of the police down. And the legislation says where to a provincial or local authority which is capable. And I would argue we have proven capability at local level for doing so. So that's the big devolution, capital D. Lowercase d is the devolution where we move the control of certain powers. And in this case, those would be powers relating to investigations, crime intelligence, and maybe some of the laboratory functions. Many of the blood alcohol results at the moment cause a lot of our drunk driving cases to just fall apart. They get sent to the laboratories. They take so long to come back that by the time they do, these cases go nowhere. They don't get put back on the court roll. And as we've shown you with the firearm statistics, with a 4.6% conviction rate, we have a similar problem, that the backup in the laboratories contributes to the overall problem. So these are the powers we would want the minister to share with us. He has recently, you will see, published a notice that says he is giving us additional powers. We were super excited when we heard that, but very disappointed. I think the standard Father's Day gift. Very disappointed when those powers actually arrived, and there wasn't anything new. It's either stuff we're already doing. In one or two cases, it's powers where the act has already been removed or declared unconstitutional, so he can't actually even give us those powers. And there's only one new thing in the Domestic Violence Act, which we appreciate. But I'm afraid at the moment from national there isn't a commitment to devolve. They are very much holding these powers close to their chest around, especially things like organized crime and others, which for us is a big headache.
Okay, so you signed an MOU last year, I think in December. What is this MOU, and does it give you any powers, or is it just for you guys to work together as you know, National and Western Cape and also the city? Where does the power end? Is there even power in that?
So the MOU is not going to bestow powers, sadly. The MOU is cooperation. So we signed that thing, what was it, in August last year. We had the tremendous privilege of our state president coming down and signing it at Erica Park in Belhar. I was super excited. Remember, I'd been lobbying for that for years. And with Tlele, it was always arm's length. No, it's not going to happen. But when Mqunu came, he said, no, we'll take a different road on this. And we signed that with great enthusiasm. It's very slow going. Things aren't really moving. We're pretty much stuck. The mayor has now written to Minister Mqunu saying this process is stuck. You need to, I'm invoking the dispute resolution mechanism in the so-called cooperation agreement. The cooperation agreement spells out these broad areas in which we will cooperate, sharing technology, sharing information, sharing our operations, sharing data, and the implementation agreement, because unfortunately there is the second part. It fleshes out how that happens. Now that's where we're stuck, and we're stuck on critical things like crime data. At the moment, we get the crime statistics along with the rest of the public when they are released, but that's very little use. That's like flying a Boeing and having to land it, but you're only allowed to look at the right-hand tip of the wing. You can't look in front of you. You need that data to understand what you're doing, where the pressures are, where the crime patterns are. Otherwise, you're really not playing with a full deck. And that data SAPS does not want to share with us. Even if we say anonymize some of it, take the actual complainants' names out, just let us understand where these incidents are happening, what kind of incidents are happening there. So crime data, for instance, is one of the sticking points currently for finalizing this. We're putting pressure on them. We want it to happen. We believe we can help SAPS on the technology front. We are ahead of the curve on the technology issues. South Africa has fallen very far behind on technology, very far, sadly behind. Even parts of the world that are poorer than us, we have better technology on policing front than us. And South Africans have gotten so used to police working with such weak technology that they've almost started to accept it. And now if you bring a new technology on, people say, oh, that's a gimmick, it's a gadget. No, this is how the rest of the world is working. We are just really far behind. And if you can remember the NDP, the National Development Plan, when was that? 2012, 2013 somewhere? That sketched out a roadmap for how we were going to go forward. There was a whole chapter on policing, and the first section, one of the first sections on that was modernization. Unfortunately, that is not translated into useful tools like computer-aided dispatch for your National Police Force to use. So you're expecting your senior management and SAPs to do stuff without the tools that anybody else in the same job function as them in most other parts of the world would take for granted they're expected to do without.
JB, just explain. So the law enforcement right now and Metro Police, they arrest someone. And then once they've arrested that person, they hand them over to SAPS, right? And so what you're saying now is we don't want to hand over our suspect to SAPS. We want to continue with the investigation ourselves as the city until it gets to court and conviction. Basically conviction, if it gets there.
You've answered my question for me, ma'am. Yes, that's correct. So at the moment, we don't want to have our own police stations. We will hand the suspect. The law requires us at the moment to hand the suspect over to the South African police, where the person is kept in detention until they are granted bail or otherwise, and that must still happen. But what we're saying is, for instance, just look at the firearm stuff. At the moment, the detectives are massively under-resourced. There are way too few, probably about 8,600 detectives short in South Africa. And your detectives are sitting with caseloads of 200 or 300 dockets, in some cases more. I said this in Bellville once, and a detective in the front row called me out and said, that's not true. And I thought, oh, she's going to tell me that I'm lying. And this will be the one station where that's better. She said, no, I currently have 380 dockets, 380 cases. So there's no way a detective can handle 20 cases, 25 cases. Everything beyond that is going to be justice denied. Your victims of crime and their families are not going to get justice. So we're saying, let us help. We're not asking for any extra money. We are already investing in these. Let us help you. If you can't do it, SAPS, if you can do it, cool, carry on, do it on your own. We'll stay in our lane. We'll go sit in our little traffic and law enforcement corner. That's what the Constitution says we must do. We'll stay in that lane. You stay in your crime prevention and your detective and investigation zone. But if you can't do it, and it is clear that they can't, then let others help. Empower other agencies, whether Metro Police or law enforcement. And this is not just a fight for Cape Town. All the municipalities are on the same boat. Cape Town might be speaking about it most because politically we're at liberty to speak about it. We don't have political bosses from above telling us we can't say that. But I know the other municipalities feel the same. They say this to us at the Institute for Municipal Public Safety and other fora where we meet them, where local government enforcement agencies meet. They say these same things and they encourage us. They say, go, go, go. You push for it because it will benefit all of us.
And we're not just talking about DA municipalities here. We're talking about most municipalities would be belonging to other parties also.
Almost all of them are ANC. And then there's some others. We've got coalitions with the other parties. And I don't think I've ever been to one of these where the municipalities have said, no, we want less powers. We want to stay in our lane. They all are struggling with the same problems. Metal theft that's out of control, conviction rates low. Firearm arrests that they're doing, that's going nowhere. Drunk driving cases that are going nowhere. Serious organized crime that's creeping into the institutions. So, I mean, this is the crazy thing. Here you are, you're a local government authority. You're expected to go out to tender. All kinds of dodgy entities are trying to sneak into your tenders. We now understand the situation around Ralph Stanfield and Nicole Johnson, and they're all trying to creating these front companies. When you go and investigate, you see, oh, look, there's a whole slew of companies all registered on the same day, all created on the same day for the purposes of fronting tenders. If you're a local authority and you don't have investigative power, how are you supposed to figure this out? You're not allowed to investigate. How must you know this? You're entirely dependent on SAPS. But SAPS doesn't tell you that. You don't know this. You hire expensive forensic companies. Let's not name them by name, but the most expensive big forensic companies that do the probity on this, that look through these documents, they don't pick this up. These people still sneak through. So we got tired of that. Many years ago, you'll see, remember, I had a fight with previous Mayor Patricia de Lille. I created a thing which Becky Clele used to call the Rogue Unit, an investigative capacity. We created our first investigative and information management capacity in SSIU and SSIMS, the SIMS and our investigative unit. And that entity started digging out finding the tendrils of these organized crime syndicates in our organization. So, for instance, a whole bunch of Stanfield and Nicole Johnson's companies were detected. And we applied to National Treasury for blacklisting. And while we do the blacklisting, only they can blacklist. But we have another tool that we can use. We can deregister them as vendors. So Lungelo Mbandazaya, our city manager, based on the information that our SSIU and SIMS came up with, they deregistered all of their companies. That is why our city manager now rolls with a bunch of bodyguards. And why we denied that person somewhere between 2 and 8 billion rands worth of potential tenders. We're very proud of that. We are doing more. We're investigating all the time. We're finding more and more. We're handing all that over to commercial crimes and the Hawks and others so that they can run further at it. But we're already proving in that space that we can do it, that we can add massive value. So I think the use case is there. The proof of concept is there. We just want to be given the chance.
Is it maybe because people in powers don't see your vision that maybe this is dragging? Because you have been asking this, like you've said, you've been asking as the city for this for many years. And I mean, obviously we've been changing ministers. So you have to explain this over and over again. Where's this misunderstanding? Is it a matter of you not articulating this in the way that they will understand? Or is it just plain politics?
Maybe there's a bit of politics in it, but I'm not a conspiracy theorist that always looks for nastiness everywhere. I think it's just about everybody's slightly territorial. So the South African police see local government trying to intrude on its space. Our country is set up with a very centralized police functionality where this is not common. There are some other countries in the world that also have very centralized policing. China is an example. France traditionally was, but most modern democracies have very decentralized police forces. So all these things that we're talking about are run at local level. That's international best practice. It's actually rare for a country like France to do the reverse. France is very centralized. That happened with the inception of their democracy, and they're actually reversing that. They're decentralizing at the moment aggressively. So I don't think this big centralized thing works. It's slow, it's cumbersome, it's not swift-footed. It's not the best way to do it. You can always withhold like an FBI, a central investigative capacity, your Hawks and other stuff. You can keep these centralized agencies that do this. But swift-footed action involves decentralizing these things, devolving them. And that's what we're calling for. It is common around the rest of the planet. We're still stuck in I think, a slightly old-fashioned idea of thinking about this. Before, in the apartheid days, we were tiers of government. We were national, provincial, and local. We are now spheres of government. We are 3 separate spheres of government, and we each get our powers from the Constitution directly. So if you flip open your Constitution and you go to Schedule 4 and 5, A and B, 4A and 4B, 5A and 5B, our powers are spelled out there. We don't have to wait for national government to say, oh, you may make laws about traffic. Our traffic bylaw comes straight out of the Constitution. We have original legislative mandate from constitutional mandate. And unfortunately, some of these things got stuck in, I think, those pre-apartheid days. I don't think it's helpful. And hopefully Minister Mkhunu will have the vision to help us move beyond that. He made the right sounds when he started. Let's see where we go.
Okay, so what would you say to those people who will say that maybe the city of Cape Town wants to have their own police department like New York or like LA, in the US? So what would you say to that? It's nothing like that from what I'm hearing, from what you explained earlier.
Well, we already have our own police department because of the way the Constitution is written in South Africa and the Police Services Act is written. Policing sits in 2 spheres. It sits in national, all your core policing power, your crime prevention power, dealing with serious and violent crime, sits in national, along with the investigative power, and then, of course, the National Prosecuting Authority, the Department of Justice, the Department of Correctional Services, all those things sit at national government. Then provincial government has only an oversight function over the police, and a quite weakly legislated oversight function. And that's why province renamed the department to the Department of Policing, Oversight and Community Safety to make that clear. Otherwise, there's constantly this disinformation around, SAPS is run, the provincial SAPS, it's run by province. It isn't. Province has almost no control. And then traffic, law enforcement, and Metro Police sit in the city. Our core constitutional mandates are traffic and bylaw enforcement. And within Metro Police, and after the expansion of powers, which I fought really hard for law enforcement, in 2018, we also got much more power or substantial additional powers, like search and seizure and the ability to do the kind of firearm arrest and stuff we're doing now. Through law enforcement, that made LEAP possible. The Law Enforcement Advancement Program, 1,300 extra officers in our most crime-affected areas. I wish I could triple or quadruple that, but the city budget just won't sustain it, and province is paying for a big chunk of that. So absolutely, what we're saying is we should be like the UK. We should be like the Netherlands. We should be like the US and have police departments at local level that run their own detective branches and their own services and stuff, and are supported and expanded and augmented and watched by agencies at state level and at federal level.
There was a concern. So SAPS has IPID. Now, who plays that role of IPID if the powers lie within the city?
So IPID also has oversight over Metro Police. And for some reason, for a decade and a half now, they have not expanded those powers to include municipal peace officers. And remember, it's not just the city of Cape Town that has municipal peace officers, aka law enforcement. In some parts of the country, they're called public safety officers. It's every municipality. There's only a few municipalities in South Africa that have metro police. All the others have law enforcement, municipal peace officers, and they derive their powers out of a particular piece of legislation and only certain sections of that legislation. In 2018, we were able to expand that. So there's only a few sections from the Criminal Procedures Act were permitted before. In 2018, that expanded massively, but IPID, for some reason, was never legislated to also look at that. And we have complained about that many times. We've written to national government. We've spoken to Tlele. I remember once he summoned me to Parliament, myself and the senior officials went, and he said, why do we not have oversight over you and stuff? And we said, but Minister, it's your act. Just change it. It's not my act. I don't give you oversight. You take oversight in your act. Your national government, you expand IPID's, the legislation to also include municipal peace officers. But we cooperate with them. We are monitored by the provincial government. We are monitored in the city by our own internal affairs, by our Safety and Security Investigations Unit. They do internal investigations. There is a special civilian oversight committee called CIVOC, the Civilian Oversight Committee, that monitors discipline and other stuff. These are 10 members from civil society who sit every month and interrogate our disciplinary records and our actions and our operations. So there is a lot of oversight. We have a portfolio committee in the city that does oversight. We have the city manager, and he's monitoring and probity and forensics functions. So we are subject to a lot of oversight. But fixing the IPID thing is completely in the national minister's hand. They can do that in fairly short order, and that they haven't is just weird.
Wow. Okay. I've learned something new today. I didn't know that IPID actually has oversight, with the Metro Police. And I'm just gonna open comments just for a little while. Please behave or you will be Ubered out. Mods, I'm opening comments. Please, can we just have questions? We're not going to open for long, but we just want to understand if you grasp what JP said, and if you understand it, if you have any questions about anything that he said, please just type. We are not letting anybody into these boxes. It's just JP, me, and the city logo, nobody else. So, JP, I have a question here, a question or two.
Yes, ma'am.
That I received from someone. Out of what budget will the training for detectives come from, should the law enforcement be given powers?
So that's something that the city would, if national government said, okay, we are willing to test this, maybe just in one particular field. You'll see, by the way, in the new draft legislation, they are actually talking about more investigative powers, but mainly very little in a very narrow space. But they are themselves toying with the idea. Should this happen, they can say, well, we give you the power, but no extra budget. You have to fund it yourself, or we give you the power and extra budget to go with it. I don't think the second will happen because SAPS is so massively, massively under-resourced. I mean, they have less than half the resources they should have for our population. So there's no way they're going to start giving money also to local government. So we'll have to fund this ourselves, and we'll have to decide. Now, we have already started that. We said some years ago, we got legal opinions, multiple legal opinions that said we can have crime. We are allowed to do investigations because already private investigators do investigations. Forensics companies do investigations. The Speaker's office does investigations. Our own forensics in council has to investigate matters. Every officer, every day while they're going around, the metal theft, if they get to find a bunch of guys on the side of the road with copper, they say, well, where did you get this copper? Then the people start telling them. That process of interrogating these guys, following it back, getting perhaps to a bucket shop who's buying this stuff, that's an investigative act. But we do that every day already. It's not possible to do police work and not investigate. So we have already built a Safety and Security Investigations Unit and a Safety and Security Information Management Services. So at the moment, we're focusing largely on our internal investigations and stuff that's directly linked to the city, like, for instance, the matters pertaining to traffic licensing, fraud in those issues, the theft and sale of council assets, metal theft and related issues, and the challenges we had around various forms of extortion as it impacts on the city, our contractors being extorted, criminal syndicates entering procurement processes through stealth and guile, which previously we didn't have the ability to detect. We needed SAPs to come and tell us so, and if they didn't tell us, we didn't know. Now we have started to develop that capacity, and I will tell you, developing that capacity is what's getting me all this pain. I'm now under a lot of attacks. That wasn't the case previously when the city was arresting hundreds or thousands of street-level drug dealers and people with firearms. We didn't get this, but as soon as we started punching further up the food chain, the pain started. So unfortunately, as soon as you prod the beehive, the beehive responds.
JP, there's a request that you should get closer to your device. Apparently, people can't hear you properly.
Okay, that's not often a complaint I get accused of, is not being loud enough.
Oh, I'm shocked too.
I'm also shocked.
I'm just trying to go back to the comments. There is a question that I saw here. I think it was by JJ. JJ asked, sorry, I just need to sift through here. So sorry. I just cannot get to it. Okay, let me just, I'll ask this one. Smash and grab spots. One, see the caution sign. Any other form of action in place?
So yes, we have started erecting smash and grab signs. It's actually a humiliation if you have to put up a sign. It means that the crime happens there so often that you have to warn people about it, and you can't do anything about it. So I would say that there are many forms of crime where the idea that you're going to form a permanent blue line between the good and the bad people, this exists in people's mind. We have to have officers there all the time. But there are too many humans in the city and too many spaces where crime can happen to make that blue line everywhere all the time. You'd need a police force like New York. They have a 50,000 member police force. That's crazy. That's Pambene. We're never going to have that here. That's not going to happen. The budgets of our local government can never afford that. We are not London or New York or Brisbane. We don't have those kind of budgets. In our city, we're a developing city. A big portion of your people who live in your city don't contribute a huge amount of rates income. So you've got big cross-subsidization happening. So we don't have that kind of luxury. But with a smash and grab as an example of a crime where a small group of people do that, by now they should have been caught and arrested and prosecuted. But because that doesn't effectively happen, because as Paul O'Sullivan said in his letter in his legal demand to the National Commissioner, crime intelligence is a very weak thing now, is effectively largely deceased. We are not able to anymore effectively detect these kind of syndicated operations or gangs and pursue them, detect them, arrest them, and achieve convictions. And our conviction rate is painfully low. And so unfortunately, you end up with things like these recurrent crime hotspots, which really shouldn't exist. There, we also do public awareness. We go and tell people that we hand out pamphlets and other stuff. We do lots of comms from the city side to say, please don't leave valuables in your front seat. Don't leave your phone where somebody can see it. Don't put it in the footwell. Don't leave it on the passenger seat. And we monitor the areas with CCTV cameras. We chase after people. We ambush them from inside the hotspots, like inside Langa. There is that belt of informal structures on the edge that creates a convenient space to perform these smash and grabs from and to run back into. So we sometimes ambush the guys when they run back inside, in between the structures. We have cars parked there generally in those areas, but now the smash and grabbers will just move a little bit further down the road and go and attack where we are not. They'll go down to the bottom of Voortrekker and Jacques Gerwel, or they'll move further up. So this is a challenge, but we use our cameras, we use dedicated response, and we've even used our drones to watch to when they do the smash and grab, to track where they run back to, find that structure, and then go and grab them at that structure. And in Langa, this one day led to a massive firefight where the smash and grabbers attacked our staff and an exchange of fire erupted that was actually quite serious.
Wow. Sure. JP, okay, I see there's a lot of questions, but I'm gonna try and just squeeze in maybe 3 more questions. There's a question here that is saying, what about prosecution? Will you make sure? Because there are a lot of people that are arrested and then they are never convicted. They're arrested and then we can even make an example today. A man who allegedly unalived 8 people in Guguletu appeared in court. He had been previously arrested for unaliving a CPF deputy chairperson, but he was set free. So is there a communication between um, relevant, stakeholders? Is the city then considering also going to the NPA and engaging with them? And, or is it maybe the failure of SAPS? Like there's a disconnect somewhere.
So we have tried hard to work closer with the NPA. We are constantly meeting with them and engaging with them. We have hotspot problems such as metal theft. Massive amounts of our infrastructure gets destroyed every day and stolen to feed people with drug habits or just people who are making a living out of that. It's a very wicked living, but for some people, that's their daily income. And I mean, I look at the streetlights. It cost us 7, 8, 9 times to replace that streetlight unit that they break off for the little bit of money they get from the scrap metal dealer for what it cost us. We're easier just to give them that money, to give them that little bit and leave the streetlight alone. So the whole situation is totally crazy. We have very bad conviction rates. I remember speaking to a senior public prosecutor from the US, I think it was from Boston, who was here, who I had the privilege to meet. And when we were going through the statistics and stuff, he looked at us and he said, if we had conviction rates like yours, where I come from, there would have been massive issues. Whole departments would have been fired. There would have been some kind of commission of inquiry or a massive overhaul of the system. I don't know how you live with such low conviction rates. And that is in part a problem with too few detectives who are massively overloaded. Big challenges in our forensic services, which are overloaded as well. And I think lack of oversight over the rest of the criminal justice system, because in as much as you have CPFs everywhere trying to hold SAPs and law enforcement and Metro Police and traffic to account, and I get summons by them, I'm always happy to go to a CPF meeting and be interrogated. And our senior staff attend these meetings. But that only looks at the visible policing part, what's happening on the street. When the problem goes around the corner into that hidden conveyor belt of the criminal justice system, everything fades from memory. So I always tell CPFs, you should only be asking one question at every CPF meeting. If you're in Mitchell's Plain or Manenberg or Elsie's River, and you have gang shootings, every CPF meeting, the only question you should be asking is, have you arrested somebody for that shooting yet? If you've arrested somebody, have you charged them yet? And if they've been charged, have they been convicted yet? Because, I mean, these are the shootings. These are the number of detections. These are the number of arrests. Those are the number of convictions. The conviction rate is for gang-related stuff is below 3%, I am told. And so that's a non-starter. That's a massive crisis. That means your criminals just get recycled and keep on doing what they do over and over and over at the expense of our communities. So we do try and engage the NPA around these things, especially where these things affect us, like the firearms. 1,670 firearm arrests that we make. Our officers have to expected to run towards the bullets. They have to pull a firearm. You know how dangerous it is for an officer to pull a firearm and the potential consequences of doing so. You yourself get charged. And then they make the arrest despite risk. And then that person is never convicted. A 4.6% conviction rate. That's massively demoralizing for our staff. And defeatist for the public, because they see the same criminals coming out over and over again. And then you start thinking, well, very dangerous for me to be a witness if that bad guy is going to be out on the street next week. And I can reasonably guess he's going to be out on the street because I see it happen all the time.
I just want to say now to those who are watching, I'm going to close the comments now. And then we're going to open again in about 15 minutes. So just bear with us. We still need to get to the to the nyama, to the meat. JP, you mentioned something about someone is arrested today and then tomorrow they're out. And so how do you see the city protecting can the mods please close the comments? How do you see the city then protecting witnesses? We've seen many cases where because witnesses have either been unalived or, so they're unable to continue with the case, or the case is dismissed, provisionally withdrawn, because there was something, so how do you envision, the city dealing with such things where witnesses are protected? Will you maybe is that a mandate that you would like to take on, or is that something that you think that it should still be dealt with the justice or the NPA?
Now, you're always going to have the National Prosecuting Authority doing that. You can never have the police officers deciding what to prosecute and what to take further. There has to be these firewalls that protect the rights of people from malicious police actions, from wrongful arrest and malicious prosecution. This happens in South Africa. SAPS make massive payouts every year for this. And so these kind of things are reality. And in any country has a criminal justice system that has these different stages, the prosecutors and you've got the police on the one side who do the detecting, and ultimately a prosecutor has to prosecute and to decide whether there is substance for prosecution. So you can't be player and referee, and then there's a court that adjudicates these matters. And this is in order to protect the rights of innocent people. Unfortunately, sometimes the system trips itself up. We see this in South Africa. We have very low conviction rates. I say that starts with the number of detectives. It carries on to the resources and the level of modernization and the way where digital records weren't effectively kept previously. So there are particular problems that contribute to this. But the city, I think we could add a lot of value if we were able to play more of a role in the detections. When a couple of months ago, I went on patrol, a month and something ago, I went on patrol with Leap in Guguletu. And the officer said to me that they had a really bad experience. They caught a guy with a Glock who told them that he was on his way to assassinate someone. They caught him with an illegal Glock. They arrested him, they handed him over. It wasn't a week or 10 days later, 9 days, I think, or something, they caught the same man with another Glock, another illegal weapon that he had managed to get somehow. And it's that he was out was amazing to them. That he had found yet another gun is an absolute crisis. So we do need I think we can add a lot of value on the detection side, starting with illegal firearms and with metal theft. And when the Muslim community was perpetually being targeted by kidnapping for ransom cases, the leadership of that community summons the national minister, the mayor, the premier, everybody to a meeting. The Muslim Judicial Council at their offices called us all, and we sat down. And at that thing, we made commitments. I said, look, Minister, National Minister, we will work with you. We are willing to do so. There was a trial run during which this worked very well. We made a big dent in that kidnapping for ransom cases. And as a consequence now, you see that most of these syndicates are bust. We haven't had, touch wood, kidnapping for ransom cases like we were seeing every 2 weeks then. We then said, well, we can do the same in extortion. Please let us play that role in extortion. That has not happened. On the extortion side, SAPS has kept that close to their chest. They say we do not have investigative powers, therefore they do not permit us to be part of the operationally working on these extortion cases and stuff. There is an area, for instance, where I think we could add value and could help, because at the moment I think many communities and different businesses whether you're in the transport industry or the construction industry, whether you even are renting out of your flats in your backyard. There's some guy coming to you and saying, you're going to give me one out of these 3 flats in your backyard. You're going to be paying me the rent for that. It's just craziness. And no economy can survive, and nobody can have a decent life that way.
So there's a question about, we know what causes or what other, reasons, for crime to happen. It's obviously social ills, and we know that the city is investing a lot in safety and security. So is it maybe like a way of redirecting some funds to, maybe help with these social ills? We know there's a lot of unemployment, and we know that the city is trying. I know that, the province actually is trying to get people employed, but I mean, it's not going to happen. Not everyone is going to work. But now, is there maybe a way of redirecting some funds into helping that, and to try and help, especially the youth, with jobs? Just I don't know if you remember, JP. There were boys in Kalkstein Fontaine. They were smash and grabbers. The Daily Voice wrote a story about them. They were given a job by Pick and Pay, so they could stop doing that. Actually, that place has been safe since then, So is there maybe like a way that, the city can? I know you can't speak for everyone. You only safety and security.
So I would love you to get the Mayoral Committee Members for Social Development and Economic Growth and their provincial counterparts on your next show and ask them these questions, because I ask them this all the time. How can we do more? We had a provincial safety council meeting 3 weeks ago or so, or 2 weeks ago, at the provincial legislature. And you can ask anybody who was there if I did not spend much of my time speaking about this. I said to them at one point, I think I may be sounding like a member of the opposition, but I'm just telling you what I hear in public meetings every day. And there's an old aphorism that says nothing stops a bullet like a job. And I believe that. I think job creation and the dignity of having employment and income and the ability to buy yourself a house or build yourself a house or build yourself a better house, and the ability to then study and improve your quality of life and give better life to children, everything depends on job creation. It is the crux of everything. And in the Western Cape, we now far exceed the levels of employment of the rest of the country. We've quarter on quarter improved on our job creation levels. And in some quarters, the vast majority of jobs created in this country have been created in the Western Cape. And Cape Town is the engine driving much of this province's growth. 70% of the population live here, and a lot of the job creation is created here. But it's not nearly enough, because people will hear me say that and say, yeah, that's nonsense. There's so much unemployment in our community, and absolutely that's true. So even when you're creating more jobs, you still have a lot of people moving here. Cape Town is now the most rapidly growing and urbanizing city in South Africa by an increasing margin every quarter. People are voting with their feet. They're looking at where they think the opportunities are, and they're going there. And this means that there's always more competition for those more jobs being created. And it's not a zero-sum economy, because as the economy grows, it creates more jobs, more people supply services to other people. As the city grows, so also the opportunities. It's not that there's just X opportunities, those grow, they expand over time. Unfortunately, not nearly fast enough to give everybody the dignity of employment. And that, I think, pains me a lot. I speak to my colleagues about this a lot. We try and do many things to connect people like jobs. I was at a Jobs Connect thing the other day. I'm hosting another one in Langa myself, which is where I'm allocated as a counselor, as a PR counselor. And so there are good things happening, but not nearly enough. There are also social programs that we do where we are trying to help. I'm busy trying to restart an older social program that I saw, that I thought in Hanover Park had very good results in the form of ceasefire, that I'm trying to reinitiate. And my colleagues would be able to unpack for you the exact interventions they're making around youth skills development, learnerships, drug rehab, and various other interventions. Are those enough? Are we doing stuff? Yes, I promise you more than other cities. If you had to go and quantify these and measure the spending per municipality, I'm fairly confident we could show that we were doing more than any of the other metros. Is it enough? Almost certainly not.
Is it fair to maybe attribute the rise of crime to a specific party? Is it fair to say that maybe the Democratic Alliance is to blame for the rise, in all of this? Or is it like you're talking about the influx, of people, it's not only people moving from province to province, it's also people moving from other countries to South Africa. So, sorry, to Cape Town. So is it a fair, I don't even know what to call it. Is it fair? Is it a fair judgment?
I think the DA in Cape Town, and I don't want to make this political, but I think the DA in Cape Town has done more around the safety and security front than other municipalities. We've created more jobs in Cape Town. We have the highest level of basic service delivery every year, and national government acknowledges that in the awards we continuously win. We maintain clean audits when other metros cannot, so the money is spent where it should be spent. But so if you say unemployment equals crime or poverty equals crime, intuitively that feels to me that it must be true. But if you look at countries that are much poorer than us that surround us, from Botswana and Namibia and other countries around us, you go further north, you look at Tanzania, you look at India, where the per capita income is well below that of the average South African. You look at Bangladesh, other countries, much lower levels of crime, and much lower levels of violent crime. So I don't think it's directly poverty that causes crime. I think there is a cultural element to it. There's certain things that happen in a country where certain patterns of behavior become established. The state does not effectively intervene. I listened to an interview on the channel DW on YouTube, which was interviewing somebody around extortion, saying that the state in South Africa has not done enough to stop these extortion syndicates, and so they've grown. I think over time our criminal justice system has been weak and criminal practices have become more entrenched. Those syndicates have become more entrenched, make more money, corrupt more people, recruit more criminal elements, and these things snowball and grow. And I think we're at the end of now, sadly, 3 decades post apartheid in our democracy, where our criminal justice system has not worked as it should. And we are now collectively feeling the bite of that. And Cape Town's not an island. We're part of South Africa. What makes South Africa ill also makes us ill. And we have this additional problem of gang violence. 11 stations in this city contributed 69.5% of our gang shooting figures. And those gang shooting figures usually contribute around a quarter to 40% of our murders in Cape Town. If you take the gang murders out of Cape Town, we drop right out of the serious violent crime statistics. So it's this gang phenomenon. And in the past, the city actually had very little ability to do much about it, because our role is chase the gangster, catch him with a gun, arrest him, hand him over to SAPS. But you're not going to stop gangs that way. You can only stop gangs through investigation and prosecution. Shamila Batoy, the national head of the NPA, says the failure of policing in South Africa is the failure to achieve convictions. And I strongly agree with her. And so if you look at who controls what, local government, including Cape Town, has very little ability to affect those issues. What we can only do is chase the criminals from street corner to street corner. Changing that long term requires investigative and prosecutorial ability. And those things, sadly, we have in the past not controlled, and maybe in the future that will change.
Speaking of gangsters, we have, I almost called it hotspotter. We've got shot spotter in Hanover Park, Nyanga, and Manenberg.
Lavender Hill,
Lavender
Nyanga,
Hill.
yeah. So we're
With all
expanding
these
that footprint
gadgets.
slowly but surely. Sorry, ma'am?
With all these gadgets, we still see, high rise or like many shootings in many of these areas. Is it maybe because we think that, okay, fine, policing now should be more advanced but then also gangsters are also becoming more advanced. Is it that or what is happening with that?
I think maybe there's an expectation that technology is going to do magic. It doesn't. It just makes your officers more effective, but it doesn't magically stop the problem. Shot spotter is not the sprinkler system that puts the fire out. It's the alarm that triggers the sprinkler. So there's a shot spotter detects where that shot is, triangulates the location, gives us that location within a few minutes, within a few seconds, and we can accurately run to that location and intervene. We now respond to every single shooting incident, if resources permit, but almost every single shooting incident. If you leave it to the public to report shooting incidents, they report somewhere between 1 in 8 and 1 in 13 shootings. So they just possibly don't believe that the police will bother to respond, or they just, nobody is going to pick up the phone every time and complain. So you end up the response rate drops massively. As a consequence of us responding to that gunfire detection system, we have, in the last 3.5 years, massively increased the number of firearms we've taken off the street. If I compare what we did many years ago, if we took 60 guns in a year off the street, we were jubilant. We thought we were wonderful. Now we take 450 guns a year off the street and we're not satisfied. So we are doing much better, and these technology tools help. It's not a magic wand that will just stop the problem, but it does make the officers more effective. Cameras see where officers are not present so that somebody else can say, oh, run here, there's something. A gunfire detection listens to a gunshot and tells an officer, go there, there's been a gunshot, if the officer isn't there to hear it. I have been out with Metro Police late at night in Manenberg and Hanover Park at 2:00 in the morning and heard gunshots. In between those blocks of flats, you're not always clear where it is. You jump in the vehicle, you race to where you thought the gunshot is. You've lost now the first minute or 2 minutes getting there, and now you're on scene and you can't see anybody immediately shooting. Maybe a few people or kids are running around, and so you ask, where did the shot come from? Where did they shoot? And they will point you to the bottom of the street. You run there, you find 3 young people. I'm recording a specific scenario. 2 men and a lady standing, and we say, where did they shoot? They point in 2 different directions. 2 of them point in the one direction, the one points in the other direction. Now we're chasing up and down the streets. We're looking for the source of that gunshot. 7-8 minutes later, you realize, okay, those people have disappeared now. You carry on looking for them. You do random stop and searches. With gunfire detection, we're running to the right place to start with. Therefore, your hit rate goes up. You're not getting every gun, but you are getting a lot more guns. And so technology makes us more effective. That includes the new body cams that we're putting on our staff, makes everybody a bit more honest, the dash cams in our vehicles, which have hugely increased our ability to catch people with outstanding warrants on the street, including stolen number plates and otherwise. Technology is an aid. It doesn't replace effective policing. To have effective policing, by the way, Cape Town needs about 3 times the number of Metro Police traffic and law enforcement that we currently have. That will have to come out of the budget somewhere and will compete with these things you've asked for. Not just the core business, water, sanitation, electricity, roads, parks, but it will also compete with the social services that you're asking us to spend more on. So you have to try and figure out where does that money essentially go. And I think our Mayor, Jordan Hill-Lewis, and the Premier, they're trying to do this balancing act by spending on both. And they've invested substantially in police, but we can't take over the function that SAPS is supposed to be doing. And the problem is that SAPS is so badly under-resourced now that all across the country, this is a crisis. Well, you should have 1 officer for every 250 to 350 members of the public. SAPS is below 1 officer to every 650 at the moment.
JB, do you think maybe the city is still holding on to Hanover Park, Manenberg, Nyanga? These are the areas where shootings happen, blah 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 blah. Whereas we have Elsis River, which is now another problem. We've got Bishop Lavis, where the police said a few months ago that they've managed to keep things right or calm in Kailish and all those other areas, but then Bishop Lavis and Delft, because Delft is another problem, another stubborn state, but you don't get this technology in those areas. is it still coming? I know there are people that are from those areas here. So can they also can you just maybe explain to them why they haven't got this technology yet?
So firstly, I wish there would be a South African supplier that could supply this. When we go out to tender, there's only one foreign supplier.
Okay.
There are now potentially South African suppliers. We had an approach this week, in fact, by somebody who says that they're working on this, and hopefully next time the tender is open, we'll get a SA supplier, and maybe it'll be more affordable. Things you buy in dollars are expensive. I would love to expand the footprint to every one of these suburbs. We can't afford it. We can withdraw the system and go without it. We asked our Metro Police officers when the original tender finished, should we reinstall it or do we spend the money otherwise? Their recommendation was reinstate the system. It was a huge value add to us. But remember, Mandi, like nowhere in legislation does it say that local government is responsible for installing these technologies. It's not our job. Nowhere. We're just doing it. But nobody says province mustn't do that and national mustn't do that. Our budget comes in millions. National government's budget comes in billions. We have a tiny budget compared to them. Nothing says that national government should not also be modernizing. And as I mentioned, the NDP, as far back as the NDP, they committed to modernizing. Computer-aided dispatch is a core piece of technology. For some reason, not yet made available to national government. It's mad. You can't run a police service of 120 or 150 or 180,000 cops and not have computer-aided dispatch. So I'd like to expand these. We're hoping that the cooperation agreement and the implementation agreement with SAPS brings them on board and gets them to start putting budget aside. In the last year of his term, Bheki Cele committed to expanding ShotSpotter, the gunfire detection system. Unfortunately, that didn't happen. We're now seeing them adopt another technology that the city has rolled out, which is the body cams. Very excited that they're doing that. I have seen their drone unit in action. They have adopted drones. Awesome. Let's see more of that. So hopefully we can stimulate that and share our technologies with them and get them to commit more. Because if you're still doing what police did in 1990 and 1980, which is the case by and large, you're only going to catch criminals who stopped becoming cleverer in 1980. Unfortunately, crime evolves, challenges evolve, and you have to evolve with it. The whole rest of the world has passed us by in terms of what the systems they use.
Okay, one last question from me, and then I will open the comments, and then that will be the end of the show. So you mentioned something about the GBV. I didn't quite catch. You said that you have little powers when it comes to GBV. And now there was a question earlier asking, will maybe the city consider taking on cases of children, especially?
So we do have domestic violence powers. So if a person is assaulted, man, woman, child, we will respond. If there's a complaint, we do have the power to enforce the Domestic Violence Act. The minister now is adding one section of that act additionally, which is good news. We had a workshop on this earlier today, and we specifically discussed that. It's the only addition that there really is to these new powers that they spoke about in the notice that was issued by national government a few weeks ago. And the city, I think we would like to do quite a bit more on several of these areas. So one area that they're adding powers, and I'm segueing now, I know, is immigration. So we have been working with a new minister for Home Affairs and with the Immigration Bureau and doing more there. Metro Police is now doing operations about 2-3 times a week around illegal immigrants, where we are arresting them and handing them over to SAPS for immigration to process them. I am not a xenophobe, but if you're in my country, you must be legally in our country. And unfortunately, immigration enforcement has been very weak until recently. We are trying to do our bit to strengthen that and do more. And so we're helping SAPS and immigration with that and signing agreements with Home Affairs. And we are also trying to do more on domestic violence, because whilst everybody will talk about gangsterism, I think the stats, if they properly reflected it, would show that we probably have casualty rates or death rates. And I'm sorry, I really struggle with this euphemism, unalive, that you use, and I know why you use it in terms
Please
of
use it.
yes. But the mortality rate around domestic violence and GBV related incidents probably are on the same scale as gang related violence, but it's not spoken about. It's not gunshots going off in the street publicly. It happens behind closed doors. And we have been trying to get Metro Police to step up and do more and more in that space, both on the counselling side, getting groups together, talking to women, taking victims of domestic violence onto to workshops and breakaway sessions and weekend stuff with Metro Police social crime prevention. Not nearly enough, just as we're doing camps with youth and youth and at risk through the education department. We now do about 900 young people a year that we take on such camps. I wish we could do about 7,000 a year. That would be the target. So there is, I think, more that we can do in the space. The investigative space of that is critical because that's where really the extra value needs to be added.
Okay, mods, please get ready. We are opening the comments section. Please stay on topic. We are not entertaining anything other than what we spoke about here. So any more questions before we let JP go? Let's just give them a second. His programs at school for 7 years still have no. Okay. When will the city of Cape Town implement panic apps like Gauteng province?
I would say that the so-called Gauteng apps aren't really very useful. I have looked at them. They don't do what they claim. But in the next few weeks, we are launching there are two apps that we have worked on for some time. The one is the Neighborhood Watch app, what we call the Trusted Partner app. We've trained about 40% of the neighborhood watchers in the city on using that. That effectively makes the neighborhood watchers an extension of us and us an extension of them. If they see stuff, hear stuff, they can report it to us and we can speak to them on the app and we can see where they're patrolling. So good value is coming out of that. It's closing the gap between us. And the same with private security companies. That's another area that we're working with more closely and where a lot more is going to happen. And then the other one is the public app, the Citizen app. We started testing it with the deaf community. So it's a small, more manageable proof of concept. And that app allows you to report things, including urgent stuff, through an app. And that has now gone on for long enough that we can manage the implications of it. And we are launching that publicly in the next weeks and then rolling it out or making it available to all of the public so that you don't have to make calls 0214807700 to get to our control room or our call center. You can report it. And the benefit, of course, of reporting it on the app is that it's geolocated. So we immediately know where you are. We don't have to ask your address. And because you've registered as a user, we don't have to ask you who you are. Your details are already in it. So it just makes us a little bit more efficient in that regard. So on your doorstep, coming.
JP, can we just squash this notion that law enforcement is only meant for the affluent areas, whereas, the whole Cape Flats don't have enough law enforcement? Can we just address this? Because I saw that. I didn't want to entertain it, but it's been said all over and over.
So it's a blatant lie. It's an absolute 100% lie. And I think what happens is that people who live in a particular community will say, well, we don't have enough law enforcement. We assume everybody else has more. I can tell you every community says that. If I go to a meeting in Camps Bay, they say that. If I go to a meeting in Milnerton, they say, oh, we suppose all the resources are sitting in the hotspots and you've given us nothing. We have to look after ourselves. We are not SAPs. We do not have SAPS's resources. We're never going to have SAPS's resources. We're never going to be SAPS light. National government keeps that budget for themselves. It's their national competency. They get your tax money for that purpose. You pay them tax and PAYE for that purpose. We are supposed to be doing something a lot less exciting in the form of traffic and law enforcement and bylaw enforcement. And we have stepped up. We've rolled out LEAP. That's 1.8 billion rand. No LEAP officer works in an affluent community. It's only high crime rate areas. So 13 high crime rate communities that we work in, no affluent. All of our specialized units, gang and drug task team, stabilization unit, reaction unit, all that. Our TRU only work in high crime rate areas. So I can tell you that it's comfortably that it is an absolute lie. It is 100% inaccurate. In the past, when people have made that false claim, the easiest thing for me is to go onto our control room, because all of our vehicles are tracked, because we have computer-aided dispatch at any given time, like I could in the Belleville South public meeting last week. We can put up on the screen exactly where our vehicles are. I can take a screenshot and we can post that screenshot, and that silences that argument instantly, because you can see where the vehicles are distributed. You can see the vehicles in Mitchell's Plain, in Khayelitsha, in other areas, and you can see how they are distributed. And they are not, affluent communities do not get more. What I think sometimes creates a distortion is that we have a rent-a-cop system. And so in some communities will raise funds through city improvement districts or special rating areas, and they will pay for extra. And that extra may be perceived as something that the city is paying for. That's those communities paying for themselves. And that's good, because it allows us to focus our resources on the communities who cannot. So it's an absolute bit of dishonesty. I know it's politically convenient for some to say things like that, but it is absolutely inaccurate. The vast majority of our resources sit in poor and high crime rate areas. And I think every person in the city probably feels that there's not enough. And that is true. We do not have enough police. But for the city to make up for what SAPS is short, we would need to massively escalate our rates and tariffs to an unaffordable level. And that's just not possible. There's only so much a ratepayer can afford. And you cannot replace what's missing in your tax money with what has to come out of your rates, because rates also has to pay for water, electricity, sanitation, roads, all these other municipal services.
Okay, I'm not going to ask this one again because you've already answered. There's a question about CCTVs. There are many areas, high crime and hotspots, where CCTV cameras are not working. Are you monitoring those? And I mean, there was a shooting in Fulini police station, close to the police station. There's a CCTV camera that is up just right by the taxi rank, and it's not working. That's what we were told when we were there. And like Khayelitsha and all of those areas. So is there maybe are you looking into fixing those to try and fight crime?
So our cameras systems, we have contractors who are required to repair the cameras within a certain time. There's a contract period in terms of the SLA, which they have to fix these cameras. And we maintain a camera functionality of above 90%. In fact, the last time I checked, we were on about 92.8% functionality. International best practice is 90%. If 90% of your cameras are functional at any given time, you're doing well. We are consistently above 90%. There are some areas where cameras are higher hit than in other areas. So I can tell you Khayelitsha gets a completely disproportionate amount of budget from our maintenance budget, goes to keeping the cameras in Khayelitsha, repairing them over and over and over. We have started experimenting with taking our cameras off grid, so not supplying with an electrical feed that runs in a cable under the ground, and with a data feed that runs underground. So they just get vandalized over and over around the corner where the camera can't see, and then the camera doesn't have feed. So we are increasingly experimenting with batteries and solar panels to keep the cameras running, and with wireless communications to make those cameras less susceptible. Unfortunately, that means expensive stuff ends up sitting at the top by the camera, including a battery, which is a valuable item. And so the camera's technology then becomes a target again for the metal thieves and stuff, who will climb up a homemade ladder or whatever, or rip off that stuff to try and get to it because there's value in it. But our general camera functionality is good. I can say comfortably in the last 6-7 years, all of our camera installations are in poor and high crime areas. We're not doing camera installations in any affluent communities. Though where cameras go up in affluent communities, it's on the ward allocation budget. So sadly, and I'm sorry, just slightly political just for a moment, I try not to do this, but there is a general phenomenon that where crime is highest, your ward councillors will invest the least of their ward budgets on safety. And where crime is lowest, the councillors are investing a lot in safety. So in your most affluent suburbs, the ward councillors are putting 200, 300, 400,000 rand of their annual ward allocation budget out of that R1 million a year on for CCTV, and gradually year on year expanding their cameras. In some of our poorest communities, the councillors in over 5 years will not spend a cent on CCTV. And so some years ago, I started calling them out for that. It made me very unpopular. They really hate it when I do it. Started fighting with me a lot about it. But if I don't say it, they're not brought. Their communities don't challenge them. And so we are seeing now some more expenditure come from some communities, high crime areas where the councillors are also on their ward allocations investing. Most of the crime cameras, most of the CCTV cameras that's gone into high crime areas has come out of the overall safety and security budget, usually around 30 to 50 million a year. And those go in based on SAPS as crime threat analysis. In old years and previous years, early on in the Unicity, we had our own rollout list that was from time to time updated. We haven't done that in a long time. We now roll out cameras as per the crime threat analysis of SAPS based on the highest crime stats. So if you don't like where the cameras are going, then you are disagreeing with where the National Police Service says that the crime threat is highest. That's where we are rolling out the cameras.
Okay, I just want to address the people that are watching. I'm seeing these comments and they're unkind. So therefore, I'm letting JP go and spend time with his family because y'all do not know how to behave. So JP, thank you so much for joining us. Oh yeah, I do want to ask this question. How are the WhatsApp groups helping with crime fighting and also reporting?
So we, some years ago, we had a neighborhood watch member, Mr. Kirby, who said that he wanted to do an experiment where he monitored the WhatsApp groups and then fed that straight into our dispatching operations. So we did that. He started on a volunteer basis. Eventually, the project worked so well with a group of people sitting there at Metro Police's control room from neighborhood watches monitoring these that we made them full-time staff. So there is a so-called radio room, and they sit and monitor these WhatsApp groups across the city, these different neighborhood watch groups, and directly from there pull dispatching requests. So all the neighborhood watchers who are affiliated with that structure, their stuff gets directly responded to and addressed. We turn those into service requests to our operational units. The Neighborhood Watch app takes that to the next level.
Okay. JP, thank you so much for your time. I mean, I hope that you will come back soon to our show. And next time, we are not going to allow comments because people don't know how to behave. We will take questions beforehand and then we will just have a show without any comments. Thank you so much.
I do want to say to you, I'm not a sensitive soul. I am, but not at work. I have learned that people who are in difficult spaces are angry, they're bitter. When you go to a public meeting, you have to soak up some of that bitterness and angry. You have to just take it in your stride. You mustn't take it personally. I know that there are few people in this country who have worked as hard at improving our safety infrastructure as I have and for as long as I have, at least in local government level. So I don't get offended by the comments. I actually don't look at them at all, so they can spew. Those who are there for political reasons, who are there from a political party and have been activated by their party, go on to Mandi's thing and say a lot of nasty stuff. This is unfortunately something that makes social media less useful than it can be and more toxic. But I don't stress about that because I know there's many other good people who do look and do gain value out of this. I'm happy to come back regularly as you will have us, bring other subject matter experts with. It's not just my face on the camera, but people who specialize in specific areas that can talk about specific technology or other programs, our Metro Police Cadet program, our auxiliary program, the reservist program, unique in South Africa, no other like it. And I think some of your viewers will find value in that. So happy to come back.
Thank you so much. For those who joined us today for the first time, my name is Mandi and I'm a journalist in Cape Town. This is On the Couch with Mandi. We had JP. We actually brought us loads and loads of information. So thank you so much for joining us and have a good night. Thank you, JP.